All right. Hi, welcome. We're here with Chad Haag from Southern India. How are you doing, Chad? Welcome.
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm Griffin. This is Ryan.
Ryan, yep.
I don't think we even introduced ourselves before. We're here in Detroit, Michigan, and we're just talking about anti-tech stuff, trying to talk to anti-thinkers such as yourself and spread the word and get some of this stuff less stigmatized, I guess, so to speak. But I don't know. If people that can't work on fixing the problem if they don't know there's a problem. So let's talk about the problem a little bit,
Well, my name is Ana Maria Camargo. I'm from Colombia. Right now, I'm in my hometown that is called Duitama, but I usually live in Bogota, that is the capital of Colombia. And I study literature.
Hi, everyone. Daryl, born and raised Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's where I'm at right now. I'm a student at University of Pittsburgh, philosophy, undergrad, senior. So I'm graduating the end of this semester.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naila. I'm from Alexandria, Egypt, and that's where I'm broadcasting now. I go to university in Ryerson University in Toronto, and I am a junior studying accounting and finance.
Yeah, excuses. I'm at the dog park, so I'll just apologize in advance if there's any dog noises. But yeah, hi. My name's Milton. I'm from Finland. I'm a 21-year-old history student from here. I got into primitivism as a sort of lifestyle choice. It's what I want to try to embrace in my own life.
Yeah. Big boy.
So to begin, Chad, you're in India right now. So what drew you specifically to India?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to have this discussion with you. To be honest with you, the first thing that drew me to come to India was the fact that this is the home nation of my wife. Now, we had thought about living in America, after we were married, but after I'd actually experienced life in India, I realized that this was exactly the kind of place which I wish America was. For years I'd fantasized about my ideal version of America, largely based on John Michael Greer's novel Retrotopia. He has a hypothetical image of Toledo, Ohio in the year 2065, in which you have a higher quality of life, and really a higher standard of living for many people, precisely by using less technology, using less fossil fuels, doing things by hand, using tools which we've known actually for centuries that they work perfectly well. We just feel that they're not an option in modern America due to an irrational prejudice that anything more quote unquote technologically advanced is the thing you have to use, even if it gives you poorer results, causes more environmental damage, and puts more people out of work. So I noticed things in India like, the neighborhood butcher. I keep about 15 chickens in the backyard, and time comes to butcher a chicken. I can just walk down to the butcher, pay $1.50. He'll slaughter the animal. He'll cut it up into exactly the right pieces you need to make a chicken biryani. It's an amazing, it's an amazing improvement over going to Walmart and getting a bird from a factory that lived for about 6 weeks and lived in such dangerous conditions that you'll get very bad food poisoning if it's not fully cooked. As this bird from my backyard, I can eat slightly pink, and it tastes better. It's cheaper. It's such a great, and this is the sort of arrangement which we could have in America. We just feel that we can't. And I became very interested in examining the philosophical reasons why we have this sort of mental block in America. This led me to study people like Ted Kaczynski, Jacques Ellul, John Michael Greer, Pentti Linkola. And really the channel emerged after I had already had this experience. Most people don't know.
The topic that we kind of came up with for today was something pretty basic, just what is technology?
Well, I just want to say that for me, or the idea that I have about technology is also like this idea of a lot of techniques together. Like there's a phrase that when I start to study, we're we're little people in the shoulders of giants.
Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, that's from Kalinescu, I guess. And I think that's what is technology. It's like one idea that becomes, as Ryan said, bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think that maybe that's technology, the techniques that have been getting better every day. Not only the tools, but just like the knowledge that is like this big thing that is getting bigger every day.
Yeah, like every advancement is dependent on the things that came before. So it's this unitary system thing. It's not like separate pieces of technology. It's like this whole everything is dependent on past advancements kind of thing.
So stemming from what Anna said about technique, I actually have a lot to say about what Jacques Ellul kind of distills in his book. So basically, just to give a bit of background around him, he was a French-born sociologist. And what was kind of cool about him, he never liked to refer and use any numbers in his academic claims. So, and that's kind of odd in terms of sociologist writing, because his wasn't quantitative, and usually for sociologists there needs to be somewhat of a quantitative measure in their writing. So that's a no-brainer for them. So Jacques Ellul kind of took the left road and not the usual road that you would take. So I'll unpack that in a moment. So basically what Ellul was someone zooming on is, if gone unchecked, forces that will lead to a bad end. That's the segue basically he gives to technique. So in this day and age, we have given ourselves basically to technique. And what the definition of technique is merely we find methods for achieving things that are scientifically determined and are most efficient. So basically not every era was blinded by technique. It's somewhat of a novel phenomenon now, and especially with Western culture, with the advancement of science, and which was kind of somewhat due to the Enlightenment in a way, which kind of paved the way for that. The idea of production and selling made people hungry and addicted to that, and hungry for more and more and more. So it wasn't only what I'm trying to say is technique wasn't only in an industrial facet, but it took place in different facets, such as government, interpersonal. So it started this infection started spreading to not only industrial means, but other means as well. So this is the issue. So technique also for Ellul was somewhat of a mindset to solve any problem by the means of the most efficient and scientifically based way to solve something. So in turn, whenever you have an obstacle, you find measurable data to determine the best course of action. But here's the big issue that Ellul had. The most important things in life are not measurable. The most human things are not measurable. That's his issue with quantitative and measurable aspects. Therefore, if you apply, for example, to eradicating widgets from a factory to dealing with people in a society, you're comparing widgets to people. So the reductionism here to people is not applicable, because you're stripping away a lot of the intrinsic value, which in a factory wouldn't matter as much, but when you're dealing with people, this is the issue. So that's what I kind of find cool about Ellul's work, that he kind of zoomed in on how the issue with technological society and technique in specific, which is kind of the big umbrella I like to think of, is the means of doing everything scientifically based and most efficient, even though sometimes when dealing with interpersonal facets of things and in general spilling into so many things, that's not the best course of action.
Glimmers of light, they're like knives of light flying at me right now. Like little fucking daggers of light.
There's something I wrote, because speaking about this specific topic, I once wrote a paper, this is years ago now, but I wrote a paper about I was talking about how if you looked at the job structure of America today, if you ignore all the people so if you ignored everyone over 18 that's unemployed, which is half the population of people above 18, you have about 150 million workers, people that make money in the United States doing jobs. And so I compared it to pre-industrial, I compared it to pre-industrial agricultural societies. I was look, back in the day, it was an 80-20 ratio, 80% agriculture, 20% in the cities at most, and that's how the system existed. And then I just went to the labor demographics. I was I wonder what it looks like today. And so out of out of like that 150 million people, something like there's only like 8 million manufacturing jobs left. Like 8 million people working in factories, and then like military stuff. And then everything else, so like the other like 120 million people were just various, like, I call them money trading industries. Like if they started like changing health insurance to be something like not so exploitative, it would bankrupt millions and millions of Americans that would not have jobs. Like their entire jobs would be obsolete. And then what do you do with them? And
because they don't actually produce anything.
Yeah,
Their job is just to maintain the system.
They maintain the system and trade money around. And then that's just like 80% of jobs in America are jobs that basically do that.
Do you, what's your impression of like what that percentage might be in India, Chad? Do you have any idea, or have you thought about that?
It would be hard to put a number on it, but I can say that many more people in India will be employed at any given place you go relative to what you'd see in the United States. If I could explain that maybe a little more clearly, if you go out somewhere in India, you'll see a guy working the gate. His job is to open a gate. And as an American, you say, well, why didn't they just automate that, right? But that's the point, is they needed that guy to have a job. You have a parking lot attendant. There's a guy in a parking lot who shows the person driving where to park the car, helps them get out. That's, I wouldn't say, well, I guess it's automated in the United States in that the traffic lights tells you how to leave, even like the parking lot of Walmart. And that's the thing, is like we have this selective attitude of universal automation in the United States, in which any job that's actually physically done by somebody who has a real skill, we invest so much resources into making sure that it's taken over by a machine, even if the consequences are bad. In fact, self-driving cars have already started killing a number of people. But we still accept that as inevitable, that every truck driven within the United States to deliver goods to Walmart will have to be driven by a computer. But we have this other sector of the economy in which, even though jobs ideally could be automated away quite easily, like stockbroker, banker, to use John Michael Greer's own examples, we still caution everyone that would cause an economic crisis. We say, oh, but if those people are put out of work, there will be bankruptcies, and then there will be a crisis of they won't psychological suffering and existential crisis of not knowing what to do with their lives. Well, it's to the point now where even if the technical fix is implemented, such as on Wall Street, where over 90% of trading already is done by AI, the people in the service still get to keep their jobs. Like Jim Rickards noted when he worked on Wall Street, showing up to work meant playing golf because they had to do something with their time while the computer was handling the trading. So they just amused themselves and collect a paycheck.
I think that as well is another division of the sort of fact that, when we say that when we have a technological development, we also resultively have to live in a world where we have to rely on it because society as a whole adapts it and forces us to become dependent on it for future safe living. And this also shapes the way that we think about things fundamentally, in that the way we see the world is shaped by how we are trying to understand the world by the gadgets that we are developing. Mm-hmm. And this, I think, fundamentally also removes us from who we are as a person, from our natural understanding of the world, from what we would take in without this given sort of written down explanation, which doesn't necessarily have any correspondence with not just our own reality, but reality objectively.
Also, like to stem off what Milton was saying, so basically also going back to Ellul, he kind of like along the lines, he says that technique is no longer like a secondary factor. So it's no longer like a means to an end or a middleman between society and the natural milieu. It's an end of it in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So it's strange how at first it was supposed to be a relationship between us and technique that was supposed to merely just solve problems at a very simple level, if that's even possible. And that's the trap of technology. Like once you grab it, you become more, I think, addicted to it, and how it can solve problems more efficiently for you, efficiently. So there's a codependent relationship somewhat, and we're feeding off of it and it's feeding off of us. And in the end of the day, I think that it's becoming overbearing to us, like we are again going to be like the inferior race. So the thing is, we need to, I don't know, like when you were saying, Griffin, where do we draw the line? The issue with technology is, like I said, because of its tendency to become addictive somewhat, of finding solutions to problems that are efficient and scientific. I don't know where the line should be drawn, because if you start at it and you grab the beginning of the thread, you can never let go. You're going to kind of like give a man too much rope and he'll kill himself. So that's kind of what I'm going at. Like, I don't know where the line is. It's confusing kind of to answer that question.
At the moment, I'm heavily influenced by, maybe infatuated with Ludwig Klages, and his basic idea is that becoming is life. All right, being is alien to life. So becoming is just everything moving, the unity of flux and change. Mm-hmm. And so when we get that, when we start abstracting, that is the function of being. And what that effectively does is kills life, which is becoming. So like when we start thinking about what's happening, essentially, we are killing life. And then that action, the freezing of life, is the will. Like that's like the prototypical technology, or maybe the technology par excellence. It's like that's when we abstract ourselves, we start killing the world. Like we kill ourselves, or we start killing ourselves, and then from that, it's like, yeah, we get where we are now. It's like this cumulative process of like ego growth or life death.
Right. It's a clearly inferior service and product for a higher price. And that really is a microcosm of life within the United States overall. It's so much more expensive, and yet the quality of everything you can care to name is so much worse. Even just food. Like we have this stereotypical image of third world poverty, right? There was a vlogger who was mocking India when COVID was coming here. He said, "Oh, that's a nation so poor that you get all you eat is rice and blah blah blah." Well, he's missing the point that the rice here is so much more nutritious that even if I have just a bowl of rice porridge for dinner and 2 eggs from my backyard chickens, that's enough. Whereas if I go to say like McDonald's in the United States, it's like $10 and I'm hungry a little bit later because it was not what it seemed to be. Most of what you were actually consuming was chemically rearranged corn and soybeans, right? It's not even just beef put between 2 pieces of bread in the increasingly loose sense of that term. It's actually, it's a technological simulation. You're eating super cheap materials, including even like they put sawdust in hot dogs and things like that. You're eating this, right? You're spending so much more money for something which is literally not even what it looks like. They just trick your 5 senses into thinking that it's food when it's not even that.
What would be something that you would tell a person like that, Chad, that like doesn't understand why the artificial isn't the same thing? They don't get it. Like, what would you say to them?
I mean, that's a very big subject in that I wrote a 668-page book basically on this topic. Yeah, one of the things that came up as I was writing the book was this was right around the time that COVID was, really becoming a serious like worldwide lockdown. Even India was in lockdown at that time. A lot of people were talking about the very questionable origin of food within China. There was a story really from more like a few years back that resurfaced on gutter oil, which in China is oil made from collecting raw sewage out of manholes, and then they process it in illegal factories, and then they repackage it as deep fry oil. So you go get cheap street food in China, in some cases anyway, and you'll find that it was actually deep fried in human feces, right? And Joe Rogan watched this on his program, and this guy used to host Fear Factor, right? And even he was like, I just basically threw up in my mouth watching this. This is the most disgusting thing I've seen in my life. Well, the same people who are basically watching this, if I may say so, like a pornography of like third world disgust. They're also like Vice News came to India and just showed people open defecating into into rivers, right? And they would show people drinking out of the same river someone else just open defecated into. And you watch this as Westerners, a certain pornography of third world disgust, like, oh, there's people eating and drinking feces in the third world. I'm so lucky to live in America, is really what they're trying to get you to think. These are the same people who, if you tell them that there is literally cow manure in the hamburger patties, which they don't even bother to remove, they just add a layer of ammonia filling to basically sanitize the burger from within. These are the same people who would basically react to eating feces themselves by saying, well, what do I care so long as I don't have to smell, taste, see, etc. the manure. Basically, if it doesn't enter the stream of the five senses, even if I know that it's really there, I don't even care, is basically the point we have reached.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about water, I am somebody who, according to the UN, does not have access to clean drinking water. According to the UN, the state in Kerala with the least number of people with access to clean drinking water is my own state. And they say that because most people here get their water from a well. I've mentioned before that, I didn't really have to invest a lot of money to go off grid in India because there is no grid in the village. There is no water grid. There's no city water. You have no choice except to get your water from a well. Okay. And the irony is the UN is saying that I'm technically somebody in the third world with no access to clean drinking water, whereas the well water from my own land is the cleanest water I've had. I used to obsess before I came to India about this fear that, the water there is so bad. You see these documentaries on, people open defecating into rivers, like I just mentioned.
Cholera's running rampant in India for the 50th time this year. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and I had so much anxiety, and I actually lived in India for some time, and then I went back to America, and I just made some coffee with tap water like I had done for years and years at my old family home. And that's what actually made me sick. It was ironic that I went back to America and that's the water that made me sick because there was so much other stuff. I don't want to say like germs. It was probably more like a very questionable sort of chemical sort of substances.
Like birth control chemicals that everyone flushes that shit down the toilet. Yeah, no, I mean the water supplies in America are just like, we don't have bacteria. We have
tainted. Yeah.
We have things smaller than bacteria that we don't even know is in there because like we can't test for 80% of this crap because we just started using it like 10 years ago. Oh man.
Unforeseen consequences. Yeah.
Literally unintended consequences. Yeah.
We have here there is like this German explorer that came to America and like as you say, it has like all the animal dissected, all the plants dissected, and it's Alexander Humboldt, and we have a lot of institute that's called Alexander Humboldt because he's the one. I mean, here and the Indian people like they have their medicine and everything, and the thing that they did was like they bring the plants that they found, and the people here use it to heal, and they became that into drugs, and that's the example, for example, of cocaine. Like coca as just like the plant is a sacred plant here in America, So and the thing is that you shoot the leaf of the plant because it helps you, it gives you some strength, and also it helps you. We call here, we have a lot of mountains, of course. When you go up to the mountain, you have something that is like the sickness of mountain. Like when you're really high, you start feel like you can't breathe. And the coke was used to the Indians eat it for that because it usually helps you when you're trying to become when you're in the top. But the thing is, like in the 1855, someone, I think was Alexander Humboldt, sent this plant to Germany, and they discovered the active part of the coke that is that we call cocaine, like the pure white thing. The nature combined with the technique became a tool, and that's the thing. Like, where do we stop? We were using like we were using coke all these years before the Spaniard come, before the explorers come, and after that, after they've discovered that they give you the strength and also the efficiency, because I think the cocaine is used for that, because it makes you so speedy, so like you want to work, like you want to like to make hunger of knowledge, make hunger of work or whatever. So it's something that make you really, really speedy. And that wasn't the idea. I mean, for here, for some of the people, this plant is sacred, you know? It's something that you use for heal yourself. But now these also these communities are suffering because the government is trying like to incinerate all these plants, you know?
Because they think it's like a drug epidemic or something like that.
That's right. That's right. And it's sacred, and is something that the community can't live without, because it's the soul of the community. So that's when the technology has the limit. It's like, it's when the nature become a tool. Is when the nature like lost the nature of itself.
Yeah. So like I think like we often get to this point where we're like, oh, here's another thing that is integrated into society, and there's these unforeseen consequences that come of it. Like I think my favorite one that I usually talk about is like automobiles. That like there's some story that my professor would tell me about how when automobiles were first like being invented, and somebody would get a car and drive down the road and ask their friend like, hey, you need a ride to work? And he's like, no, man, I'm in a hurry.
I got a horse.
Yeah.
The horse does the job.
But then we started like building our cities around this idea. Do you have like a favorite like invention or just technological device or something that was made, that was integrated, and then there were these terrible unforeseen circumstances?
But now we just like live with it as a matter of fact. Like that's just how it is now. So
yeah. like what's one of the key ones for you?
Well, it's very hard to think of only one, but one that I've personally grown to try to get away from as much as I can is just the internet itself, to be perfectly honest with you. I remember even when I lived, in the United States, I actually canceled my cell phone when I was working as a medical courier. Mm-hmm. And without having a cell phone, without having social media, I noticed that even just the downtime at work. So as a medical courier, you get an order to, pick up a box of blood and take it from a blood center to a hospital. And when you're done with that, sometimes you'll have a little bit of time. You're waiting in the hospital parking lot for another order. Okay, it might be 10 minutes, it might be 30 minutes, whatever. The first reaction most people would have to that situation is, okay, whip out Twitter and see if there's anything new. And without a cell phone, I would instead take out a book, mostly from the library. Didn't even have to pay for it. It was just a free book. And I was able to read so many books just waiting for appointments, waiting for assignments at work. It's an amazing amount of time which you could use to do something else, but instead it's wasted. I remember training my replacement for this job before I quit and moved to India, and we had about an hour of wait between jobs. And she whipped out Facebook, and I could tell how frustrating the whole process actually was for her. She was trying to have fun, but you could tell just how boring it actually was to sit there and keep scrolling down looking for something. And it's interesting that people do this by choice. They spend like $100 a month to have that cell phone service. They don't do all the things they would otherwise love to do, because they feel like if they have that 10 minutes of time, they have to use it on social media. It's this idea, as Jacques Ellul says, that it's not even that you enjoy one activity more than the other. It's actually more enjoyable to read a book during those 10 minutes. You just feel this on an option because a newer sort of technique has replaced another and has made it so obviously inferior as to no longer even be an option. Yet that is not because it satisfies humans' desires any better, or that it's better for the environment, or so many other issues. It's rather that technique has its own logic of development, which is completely indifferent to the existence of us. In fact, it's reached the point now that the existence of humans has become a technical problem.
My roommate plays like a lot of video games, and like I have a lot of other friends that play a lot of video games too, and they use it a lot of the time to socialize. And I think this is something that I hit. It's like a wall that I hit with a lot of people when I try to bring up these issues about social media. Is that they say, well, it's not taking me away from the experience because I'm socializing with all these people that I'm not otherwise have socialized with. People say like either like I'm creating great relationships with people like from all over the world. I'm connecting with people really far away that I wouldn't have otherwise connected with. And I'm connecting with people in ways that I might not have otherwise. Maybe if I saw that person on the street in real life, I wouldn't have talked to them. But in this world, I am. And so that's better. What would you say to someone that says something like that?
I mean, to a certain extent, it is true that social media allows a type of communication with people that can be meaningful. All the way from here in India right now, we're able to have this discussion, and that is a good thing. However, I think that the connection between the social media simulation of interacting or communicating with others is something. The simulation was something which was intentionally engineered by people at social media headquarters to become something of a substitute, not even in a kind of hermeneutical level, like replicating the kind of meaningful discussions you would have, but rather on a purely technological level. What I mean by that is they invested a lot of money and time into examining how exactly to artificially stimulate the human body to release the same 6 biochemicals I guess you would get if you had that sort of interaction. I'm guessing, to the extent I understand it, if you were to leave home and run into a friend, right, and get to talk to them, you'd probably have those 6 biochemicals released. If somebody were to come knock on your door unexpectedly and you have a pleasant discussion with them, those 6 biochemicals released. They found a way to get you to release them even if there's literally nobody on the other end. If you have bots mass liking something, when there's literally nobody on the other end, they can still make it seem on a purely physical level that you had that experience, even though you didn't. And the truth is, most communication which goes on over social media is not meaningful in the way that, what we're doing right now. Is most communication over social media is really just retweeting sensationalism, usually really of a political variety. That's what social media, in my experience, before quitting, had become. It was just a political outlet to retweet memes or really viral news articles like, oh, you'll never believe what this Republican senator did this time, right? And you get likes from people who are like-minded. And it's not meaningful discussion. And even if there's a comment, it's likely to be just as sensationalist. And I really think that although they might have mimicked the physical structure of that sort of experience of communicating, they really haven't captured anything really beyond that. That's why no matter how much social media you use in one day, however many likes, let's just say you're a prolific vlogger who can get hundreds of likes in a single day from uploading a video. Quantitatively, or I rather should say qualitatively, it's still less meaningful than just one interaction you might have of the kind I just mentioned, of actually running into someone in person.
Do it, Joseph.
No, I'll just butt in and say that, yeah, it's also something that's been like commonly recorded as well in not just Nordic and European, but specifically also Finnish and East European and Uralic mythologies and shamanistic practices is using psychoactive mushrooms for thousands and thousands of years in different sort of rituals and sort of healing formulas, I guess. But it's not, I think, as a scientific view on it, like you explained, they take a very direct view of it, a very concrete view on what the problem is that they're trying to solve, rather than analyzing the human aspect of how it is experienced and what the framework that it is related to exists within. So you can't really, the way that we would view it using modern science is asking direct, specific questions of what it entails, rather than putting it in the framework of how it has been used so far. which could be considered more in the humanitarian side.
It
Also,
separates it, makes it static and dead, like we were saying before.
Yeah. It's very much it's more of a, to use a really bad analogy, more of a number rather than a word.
You know, me and my brother were talking like a few weeks ago, probably, and one of the things that came up in like one of the ways I was trying to explain like Klages stuff to him is like, you know, I don't really believe in like metaphysical like values, like good or bad, like that sort of thing. I mean, like, you know, we can talk about that, but it's like there's still a value judgment. All right. We make that as just like a thing. It's like we consider something good. All right. And so the process of will is looking at what we are. And then it's saying, all right, we are a needy being. And then it's trying to change that fact. So it's like, do we value, if we just value life, and that's like being a needy person or needy thing, it's like we just go with that. We don't have to change it. But if we do not value what we are, if we do not value what we already have, which is, you know, just life, that's when we start changing things. That's when it goes off the rails. And
when we want more.
Yes, it's like when we want not this, you know, not this, and then it's just this endless process because you have this, but you can't have not this, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I love, like, I don't mean to interrupt you. I want you to keep going. I just like, I love trying to, you know, I feel like my struggle a lot of time is trying to make it clear to people that like the way the world is right now, without like forcing change upon it, is so crazy and beautiful and like expansive, and there's so much going on all the time. It's like to not be in utter awe of just the current moment is like absurd to me. So like when people are like vying for like a, you know, like a greater future, like, no, we can make everything better, and like they're so focused on making things better, they don't stop to look at how awesome things are right now.
You know, if you wanted to make like an analogy between a dog or something, or comparison with a dog, it's like a dog feels hungry and it moves towards food or whatever. People, we know that we feel hungry, but we want to change the fact that we get hungry. It's like we don't want to ever be hungry again. It's like a dog is motivated by its hunger, but it can't think about changing.
It doesn't seek to rid hunger forever.
And so like you know, we can't get rid of hunger, but we think we want to, and then it's just like you know, agriculture and then excess and, you know, the petroleum-based fertilizers, and just, you know, it just leads to this disaster.
I'm glad to have you, Joe. Where can people go to find more of your stuff?
So I have the YouTube channel, Chad A. Haag, Peak Oil Philosophy, and I have the 6 books on Amazon, available on paperback and ebook editions.
Do you have any like upcoming projects that you want to boom?
Plug or mention?
Yeah, I've been working on a book called Why I Am Not a Leftist. This is something which I kind of floated the idea like 2 years ago. And even like after 2 years, there were still people leaving comments because I think that's one of the most maybe surprising things for most people about the channel is there's an assumption that anyone talking about like academic stuff is just by default a leftist, right? Yeah. And certainly when I was in graduate school, I was like, if you had seen the original Chad Haag channel in say 2012 when I was in grad school, oh yeah, I was definitely repeating whatever I had to say on that campus in Boulder, which prides itself on trying to be like, you know, the most leftist place in the country. So there's an understanding that if you're talking about academic stuff, you have that sort of political view. But I think that leftist in the Kaczynskian sense of the term, not an ideology, but rather a psychological type of over-socialization and feelings of inferiority. This is something which I think could be explored in much greater depth. But you know, the next book will kind of be short and fun and cheap. Should be maybe 150 pages, maybe $7 when it's available. But yeah, it's just a great opportunity, I guess, to be able to talk about things like this in a way that I feel would not even be possible if you were working within a certain formal institution.
Thanks again, Chad, and we hope to have you on again. This was
awesome. This was I had a lot of, if you can't tell, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a great talk. It's so difficult to have that sort of discussion really anywhere these days. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.